Hello and welcome all to this additional session with B3i. We're going to dive into B3i Re for brokers and what that means. And a little bit, this session dovetails nicely with the session we had earlier today. So if you were able to attend that, then great, but we will provide a short recap of what was in that session. Again, we're joined by John Carolin and Antonio Marzo, CEO and Head of Products, respectively. Just for an agenda today, welcome introductions done. There'll be a recap, B3i Re, as I mentioned, for those of you who weren't able to make it to the session this morning. And then we'll go into B3i Re for brokers, in depth for brokers with Antonio Marzo, why, and then follow that up with why is DLT, technology of this sort, a team sport, a challenge for the industry. And then, as always, we'll have your questions answered. And this obviously is a chance to specifically get for you as brokers to ask those questions to our two speakers. So without further ado, I will jump straight over and hand over to John to kick things off with a quick recap.
Thank you very much, Red, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. So with all the focus on B3i Re today, I'd like to place this application in context. What people see when they use...
Seems that we have lost John.
Apologies, everybody. We've lost John. We'll see if we can get him back. We might jump between sections.
I can take over, and as soon as John is back, we can give it to back. But what John was aiming to say that is B3i Re, which is the focus of the session today, of course, is an application and is perceived as an application, as a place for some brokers, as a placement platform, from some cedents, as a vehicle through which they can manage their treaty with transparency, for some reinsurers as an additional vehicle from where they can participate on treaties. But the reality is that B3i Re is much more than just an application. It's our reference implementation. It shows exactly how DLT applications can be built and how B3i Fluidity, which is our core strategy and our core strategic product and platform, enables applications to interoperate on top of a distributed ledger infrastructure and to enable interoperability amongst different applications. You can take it over, John. Over to you.
Thanks. Apologies, everyone. My internet dropped for a second. So this application is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much happening underneath the hood, and the way we've architected it is in a way that allows others to leverage the building blocks that we've built, the standards and the protocols, and we're ensuring interoperability by curating a minimum set of standards. So today we talk about B3i Re, the reinsurance application formerly known as CAT excess of loss, but it's important to also understand B3i's vision around the platform, network, and ecosystem. We've been working to establish infrastructure, physical infrastructure set up in customer production environments. We've been building these building blocks, standards, data protocols, something we call the risk transfer language, upon which all of our applications are built, which we enable third parties to build on top of. We call our insurance industry operating system Fluidity, these reusable components available as a software development kit for third-party applications. And then lastly, we enable third parties to build compliant applications, to integrate their applications into our network via Fluidity, and ultimately have a vision of a functionally rich ecosystem enabled by our standards, protocols, and infrastructure that ultimately provides a better customer experience and improves the insurance model. So if I focus for a moment specifically on brokers. there have been a number of changes under the hood that are really quite significant. I think we can all agree that removing admin and focusing on core competencies is in the best interest of customers. Streamlining technical accounting removes unnecessary costs for everyone. API integration for existing placement solutions is now being enabled. We don't need to master contract terms via our placement application. And I think this has been one of the learnings for us. And if I'm honest, a mistake that we'd made. I think we as technology purists at the beginning, there was a view that we needed to master contract data at the time that it was agreed via DLT, and we've built a functionally rich yet narrow placement solution on DLT. And I think we've come to realize that we don't necessarily need to master that contract data. And I'm really excited that we've now moved beyond placement and we're moving into technical accounting, and we'll ultimately move into payment and settlement, where we can leverage that shared view of the single version of the truth, whether contracts are mastered via B3i or via other means. This not only opens them up to broker placement solutions and other solutions that are out there, but it also enables legacy business to be brought onto the platform and administered via the B3i network. Our focus is also moving to, as well as addressing other aspects of the value chain, it is also moving to enabling all types of business and lines of business to allow B3i to be more relevant for a larger universe of business, allowing the gains that we create to be scaled for everyone. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'll let Antonio go into the details, but there are a few key things that I want to touch on. We stand here today after 4 years of over 50 companies contributing to B3i. Many of the individuals have joined us today, and are some of them in the session today that have got us to where we are today. Our door is very much open to continue to collaborate, particularly as we seek to leverage all of the investments that the broker community have already made into building customer-centric solutions. It's not our intention to come between brokers and their customers, but rather to provide infrastructure, standards, and protocols that benefit everyone. And I think one of the other things that I'd like to highlight is, I mentioned in our earlier session today, our twin track approach towards product development. Reinsurance is a vertical where we've built a lot of functionality and originated a lot of components for fluidity. Within commercial insurance, we're focused around a number of customer-sponsored projects that we're building and along with third parties. But we're also focused on a few market-level problems that we're trying to solve and solutions that we're looking at. And I think we have the opportunity with brokers to start on the right footing, because these are projects that are emergent, and we're looking to have broad collaboration across the industry. So we invite you to reach out to us to find out more. One of those is one that's very close to and dear to Antonio's heart, the Risk Data Exchange. I think some of you are already familiar with it, but we're looking to make sure we have the right group assembled to address another market and industry problem. And then one of the other things that we will be doing is launching our strategic advisory board, which is a vehicle for the industry at large to engage and help steer B3i and set its priorities. And we look forward to having members of the broker community join our strategic advisory board that helps make sure that B3i remains by the market for the market. With that, I'll hand over to Antonio, who will go into some more of the details.
Thanks, John. I can only endorse, what you just said about the risk data exchange, which is a project where we have seen really excitement from the broker community, and we have seen tangible efficiency that can be generated. I think we will be reaching out to many in the next months to join the specific project. And the key thing about the risk data exchange connected to B3i Re is that they are both enabled by the same platform, by B3i Fluidity. And this is the fundamental element that we bring in the market today. The fact that there is not just a single product, or let's say a single protocol, a new protocol, but there is actually a platform. And there is a platform that aims to enable rather than execute and develop, for B3i develop application. So looking at B3i Re, what does this solution enable? First of all, it's a protocol, then it's a solution. We need to think about this technology from a different perspective, because we are not talking about a placement platform, a web app where someone can log in and place his own treaty, and then users are giving to companies to access in order to participate. That's a totally different dimensions where we're working on. We are working on the protocol. We're working on those elements of the infrastructures that enables the interconnectivity amongst multiple parties, that enables the possibility of having a network of participants, everyone of that network being capable of establishing a connection with multiple parties and sharing the same version of the truth when it comes to terms and conditions of a contract. Allow me to give an example here, because it can be compared to the email technology, okay, where there is a network behind with a strong protocol, and then software providers have developed their own clients on top. And they are giving the clients, selling the clients to their customers in order to have access to the network. And the network is focused on adoption, it's focused on enabling access to it. The software providers on top are focused on generating value for their customers. And the vision from a B3i standpoint, if we look at the insurance and reinsurance world, is pretty much the same. We have today an industry that is totally disconnected, apart from few cases, where the cost of achieving a single version of the truth, of the cost of achieving alignment across the multiple parties, you know exactly what it means. What is the effort you need to put in place as brokers to guarantee that everyone is on the same page? And I bet it's not that easy. I've been on the other side of the game as an underwriter, and I felt the pain. So having an infrastructure, a protocol that exists that can enable exactly that, distributing the data, guaranteeing that everyone is on the same page, that everyone shares the very same version of the truth without centralizing the information, which means without the need of carrying the liability of holding those data, because anyone holds only the data that is relevant to their participation. And the analogy with the email is very strong, because with the email, whenever you send an email, you choose to whom you want to send the email. And that specific entity must have an identity on the network. The biggest difference here is that with the distributed ledger technology, there is a strong ownership of the data and a strong administration of what the ownership can do. And on top of that, we enable the possibility of structuring the data. Now, it's not anymore like sharing a Word document, which is still possible, a PDF document, it's still possible. But there is the possibility that a contract can be qualified in this infrastructure to a number of parameters. And so imagine what does it mean? Instead of qualifying the contract with just the wording, you can actually qualify the parameters, and at the cost of a single click, broadcast to all the participants you are interested in the same terms and conditions, the same parameters. And those parameters can be processed by the receiving parties automatically from the system, instead, without the need of the processing that you need to do on a Word document, on a PDF document. There can be a real support in understanding what are the parametric conditions and what are the mechanics behind your treaty. It is a fundamental paradigm shift, going from administration to analysis, to go straight to the analytic part. And you know better than us how important is having data quality, having standardization from a domain model standpoint for the sake of increasing the capabilities of analytics and augmenting the underwriting capabilities of reinsurers and supporting the underwriting capabilities of cedents in order to qualify their needs. And moving beyond that, once you have this infrastructure that enables you to qualify those parametric elements, so you can have a contract that is qualified with limits, with sublimits or sections, with specific coverages that are included, excluded, qualifying exactly what are the terms, how the contract works. You can choose off qualifying this contract at the signing moment, just because you have done the negotiation in every other kind of place, but you want to bring it down at the signing, because of course, the distributed ledger gives you the certainty that the signing is done by an entity that have been approved, is part of a network, there has been a KYC process established, so there is a certification behind. It's a strong certification that is done. That specific entity cannot be copied, for example, cannot be changed. There are loads of restrictions there, which makes the infrastructure quite very, very secure from that standpoint. And you can choose off place your treaty even. Using all the actions, all the APIs, you can actually decide to publish an FOT, for example, to the industry, to the market. Or you can decide of requesting a quote. It's still a contract. You're qualifying the parameters. You are executing an action, which is a request to quote, which enables the receiver party to respond to your request with a price, or even to give you an alternative of that quote. It's part of this process. It's quite flexible, and it can be integrated in any kind of platform, in any kind of system. The massive difference is that by integrating with the number of APIs that we have, we are basically integrating with the entire network of participants. So recently we have seen loads of noise around the economics of APIs and how important it is that the industry becomes open. Open means, you know, that it's easy to be interconnected. But how open would be the industry if every single actor of this industry will have its own set of APIs? What is the cost of integrating to every single one? The business case will collapse immediately. But what if there is a network, a protocol that by definition enables anyone to speak to anyone without carrying that level of liability when you centralize this type of activity in one place? It's totally distributed. This is the business model, sharing the infrastructure. And we are developing that infrastructure that covers, at need of the broker, at needs of the cedent, all the steps. And there is something more. As we said, what we bring is certainty. And we bring certainty because a contract that is qualified on ledger has a number of parameters that make it certain. It cannot be, it cannot non-exist. It exists there, and it must exist within the parties that are involved in it. And so that contract can actually also be the result of a process where the broker has asked the cedent to approve his own actions. And we have seen many of those actions. And you know better than us, today, those approvals are executed via email. Many of you are printing out the email and storing the emails in your files, which is great. But can we, in this time of our life, leverage on something that can give a really real digital proof of the action? That's DLT. And as a matter of fact, we have implemented a number of features that exactly aim to that, ensuring that the cedent can give an immutable approval to the broker in order to ask a request to quote, to send a submission, to submit the FOT, to sign, everything. There is this set of features that we have developed for the delegation of authority delegation and approval steps that are fundamental for the cedents to give them the peace of mind that what they are giving to you in order to do it's actually approved to them by them, and they can totally go and follow your placement process. But once the contract is signed, there is one element that we have understood by anyone. We need to invert the process. Today, everyone goes after a kind of witch hunting for the technical accounting in order to be reconciled, which totally represent a high tax if you consider the end-to-end admin cost of treaties. What are the implications for you brokers as well? What if we make this process reconcile at the origin? What if we allow the technical accounting to be generated in the same way for every single participant of a treaty? That's exactly the purpose of the technical accounting engine that we developed. There are a number of features that can be, of course, integrated through different multi-purpose integration layer that can speak the language of lots of different systems, including Accord, EBOT, ECOT, and CM. And this gives reconciliation at the source. You don't need to search anymore for what is the correct information. Everyone will be on the same page. And there may be the possibility of mistakes, because we're humans, and everyone can make a mistake. But the difference on a DLT is that everyone will be on the same mistake. And so when you have 80 participants on a single treaty, the probability that 1 out of 80 can spot a mistake is quite high. It's the same high as it is when you're managing a treaty off ledger on paper. However, who guarantees that everyone is on the same mistake? Chaos comes out. Here, this protocol guarantees that everyone is on the same page. And in case there is a mistake, the mistake is for everyone. The mistake is fixed for everyone as soon as one spots. Let's go ahead, Brett. So what we have done so far. In the version 1.0, we focus on the minimal value, on the minimum valuable product, as we call in the agile development, bringing a solution to the underwriters and brokers that would have triggered interest, refusal, questions, requirements. And what happened during the live placement that we did in the first part of this year is that we collected an enormous amount of requirements. Some of them are really visionary requirements, which we have interpreted them as internet was just born, and we are very happy that you are asking for Netflix, but we can still move the things like the cracky modems. We are in the early stage of this technology, but we love the fact that there are some people there that have already understood where this could go. Removing the administration and making the real space for value, space for all the active part that every role in this value chain can play. So what we developed, we have increased a lot the complexity of the contract that can be constructed, that can be built with parameters. We have introduced the possibility of specifying any single financial entity in any currency. We have introduced the possibility of having loads of nested sections and subsections with parametric conditions there, aggregating, non-aggregated, with aggregated deductible. The thing is, we have been challenged by the biggest insurers in the market to implement their treaties. And those treaties are not simple. Treaties made of up to 11, 15 layers, all nested with relationship between one and another, drop down, non-drop down. we have been challenged to embed those features in, and we have increased the complexity in order to be able to capture those from a parametric standpoint, which means that there are validations behind. If you make a mistake, the system will tell you that there is something wrong, but this is IT. And we focused on also enhancing a wonderful feature that we love, which is a given in the DLT world. It's the audit trail. So due to the fact that you are executing these transactions one after the other, and you are changing the data inside, this data can be tracked from every single transaction. So transacting on the DLT, it brings you an end-to-end tracking capability, understanding exactly what have been the changes for a single field, for a single number. And having this possibility, it enables loads of opportunities on top. But we as B3i felt, we want to enable that. We will develop a minimal functionality up there just to trigger the interest, but then leaving it to the others to really exploit it and expand it. And then, as I said, we focused on developing features specifically for brokers. Features that are giving you an overview of all the written and signed line achieved so far. Features that will give you the possibility of executing specific cycles with the cedants so that you can, a simple thing, on a single contract, when you're looking at the terms and conditions, you can chat between the two parties. So you can, on one side, have a chat with the cedant, on the other side, you can chat with the reinsurer, and so you don't need to skip and change context. Those are things minimal, but actually they have a massive impact on your daily basis. And of course, last, technical accounting is the most important one, because cedants and reinsurers, they spend a lot of money in administrating all those entries, and we have enabled not only the generation of technical accounting, but also the possibility of integrating those entries into their admin systems in a multiple fashions ways, like, dedicated systems integration or Accord, eBot, eCode, and SIA. Next thread. What's next? So the speed at which we develop is quite fast. At the moment, we have consolidated a knowledge on how a DLT application is developed and how a platform can be developed. At the moment, my personal view, there is no one that is at the same level as ours. And this will enable us to have a very, very challenging approach, I would say, challenging the status quo, because we will be very fast. What's next? The major release that we will be doing next one is in March, and we will be introducing a first feature for claims management. We will be enhancing the integration. We will be introducing broker consortium protocols, because many of our big clients have multiple brokers interacting on the same treaties, and they have multiple placement platforms. We want to guarantee that the infrastructure is capable of enabling this multiple exchange between brokers that are different. And we will be extending to additional lines of business, because that's also what the demand is asking, which is extending to more contracts. And by the end of the year, we aim to cover all lines of business of contracts. We aim to extend the platform breadth and depth to cover anything we can in order to really create a compelling protocol that can enable any kind of placement. But this game, it's something that we cannot play alone, because the strategy of B3i is focused on the infrastructure and is strongly bound to enabling rather than developing. There are multiple applications out there in the market. Frankly speaking, it's impossible that we can change an industry by just the mean of a single application. It sounds stupid just by saying it. It's important to enable. But in this case, what we have seen is that a joint effort is required. Imagine if 20 years ago, a couple of companies decided to branch and to fork the email connection. We will end up having one email for a single set of members, another email for another set, another email for another set. That doesn't work. Network technology requires a full stack which is totally interoperable, that can enable real interconnection, real interoperability. And that's where we aim. We want to bring this interconnectivity, but we want to bring certainty as well. It's not, we don't just need a simple connector. We also need a mathematically certain contract that is there, that can be enforced. And our focus lives on the platform side. B3i fluidity is the real enabler. What does it mean? It means that if I use a stupid, very simple example, imagine if Apple decided that the iPhone would be only useful to call other iPhones. You cannot place any other call to Huawei, maybe in the future, Xiaomi or Samsung. This makes no sense. You need interoperability, and that's exactly what we are aiming to do. Enabling that interoperability, allowing multiple reinsurance systems, placement, administration, to be connected to the B3i engine, and through the B3i engine, augmenting their reach to the entire network. That's where we are aiming for. Of course, in order to understand and to let you understand and show you exactly what's the power of that, we developed a lighthouse application on top that shows exactly what can be done. It's a reference implementation. You can see those APIs, what they can create, and you can connect yours. Next. But as I said, John, over to you.
So I've said this a few times, we're building a market utility for the benefit of all. And the technology we're using, DLT or blockchain, it's a team sport. We've benefited from the contributions from the industry, more than 250 people over 4 years, more than 50 companies, and we have a lot of momentum. We're mutualizing common technology, standards, and protocols for the benefit of all participants, and we welcome deeper collaboration from the insurance industry. Furthermore, I look forward to brokers helping shape our strategy through the Strategic Advisory Board, and we look forward to getting input on key strategic questions we face, whether we should consider open sourcing our risk transfer language. I think we really want to be steered by the industry on this as a group that are by the market for the market. And thank you everyone for your time today.
Thank you guys. Really interesting insight, and definitely different from what we did this morning, really picking up on the broker elements there. So with that in mind, this portion is the Q&A section. If you have questions you want to ask John and Antonio, we'll be putting them to them. So make sure you head down to the bottom of the screen, the Q&A button, type your message in there for the guys, and we will put the questions to them. Whilst we wait for those questions to come in, just a little notice that tomorrow we'll also be having another session with Antonio and his product team, where you'll get to see a live demonstration. Obviously, this was a deep dive specifically focused on the broker functionality, etc. We'll also be having this deep dive session tomorrow, which I highly encourage you to join. I've already seen some names on there that I recognize who've already signed up. And so just for the rest of you, if you head over to, put it on screen here for you, launch.b3i.tech, and register for the product event, do so, and make sure you'll get to see a great session tomorrow as well.
Yeah, we have a question which is related of if our code will be made available on GitHub soon. GitHub is the platform, yes, and that's the vehicle through which we will be publishing Fluidity and every other code that we'll develop.
You've had a question here. Is there a size limit?
Yes, of course. Is there a size limit when you have to transfer an email? That's the key element of these type of technologies. There is a size limit in the Corda transactions, which is our underlying technology. But what we have envisaged is that sometimes you don't need to transfer your RMS or hair models through a DLT network. You don't need to use that type of infrastructure in order to transfer the entirety of your data. You can still achieve the very same deliverable by sharing small files like the wordings, for example, up to 10 megabytes, it's fine. Our system at the moment can transfer up to 5 megabytes per file, but this by leveraging the ledger. But you can still achieve the same by sharing the data with different protocols and storing on the ledger the hash, so storing the key of the file, the fingerprint of the files, guaranteeing that at the other end there is always consistency. So there are loads of different ways where we can achieve this type of deliverable.
Thank you. Keep your questions coming in. We obviously have more than enough time to answer them all, so keep chucking them into the Q&A and we'll put them to the guys. Antonio, I actually have one for you. You touched briefly on recalling a transaction. You talked about it real quick around the 80, potentially having 80 people spotting an error. We also have this recalling a transaction functionality in, I'll just go back for the.
Yeah. That's exactly a specific feature that was raised by a broker during the placement that was done at the beginning of the year. Of course, they want to, any user wants to have the flexibility of fixing a mistake, and we developed a specific feature that allows the broker to, in case they have mistakenly sent a request to quote to a wrong reinsurer, to recall the transaction and to avoid that the reinsurer can actually respond to that, or even removing then the reinsurer from the panel of participants of the treaty in order to ensure that that reinsurer does not receive any update on the public data that is part of the treaty, which is the same data for all the reinsurers that participate. And so with that possibility, there is this feature, this value that we create there of fixing a mistake. I think what I've seen it working, I finally, I've seen something that actually worked from that standpoint, because I always try to recall emails whenever I try to send emails into the wrong person, but never succeeded in recalling the email. We developed this feature to really succeed in that case, to really being able to recall a transaction, void it, avoid that the transaction is even visible on the other side in case of the mistake. And then if they want to execute a new transaction because maybe they sent the wrong contract, this is possible. Or if they actually involve the party in a treaty by mistake, the party can be removed and without receiving any new information on the public part of the data. Good point for the question.
Great. No, thank you, Anthony. I do know that tomorrow, obviously, the product deep dive as well. You'll be showcasing the process that we go through. I wonder if you just give a little bit of an overview for anyone listening and hasn't quite been convinced to sign up yet. What we'll go through tomorrow, what brokers might expect to see.
Cool.
Is it? Sorry, is that something you can just give as an overview? For what they might see.
Oh yes, sorry. Yes, tomorrow we will basically deep dive entirely into the whole life cycle of a treaty on ledger. We will be simulating the whole process. Of course, I will be acting as a broker. There will be other people of my team that will be simulating the different reinsurers and the cedant, and we will be, freewheeling on the application, simulating all the steps that can be executed. And as always, highlighting that, what everyone sees, it's a minimal UI that has been developed by B3i, but what we need to see what is happening behind the scene, and the fact that there is a protocol out there that is enabling a number of actions and a set of information to be privately exchanged amongst different parties. But we will be showing everything transparently.
Yeah, great. I'm looking forward to that session. I know quite a lot of signups already, so we're excited to have that one. We're not having any more questions coming into the Q&A. So, John, any final words before I do final messages?
Just to thank you for everyone for their time today, for joining us. If you weren't able to join the earlier session this morning, where we went into a lot of detail, please feel free to reach out. We will make a recording and that material available to you as well, where we just provide a greater level of overview of what's happening at B3i, where we headed, and a lot of details on the product. And otherwise, we look forward to you joining some of the sessions tomorrow.
Great, thank you, John. Yes, exactly. All the materials will be sent to attendees and signups. We have had Charlie Ryder come back with another question. Do you want to take that, Antonio?
Sure.
So the question is, have reinsurance buyers felt the process is a lot easier than more traditional means?
Yes. Yes. And they felt it easier, much easier to interpret the terms and conditions, to interpret the contract. And they felt much easier to the interaction because of the context, okay, that they can interact on the same entity with multiple parties, and they can interact with the broker, and having the certainty that the broker is actually seeing the same thing. Having a chat is not something new for the financial industry, by the way. There are loads of chats, and there are bonds that are placed through chats worth billions. And they felt that this type of interaction was actually immediate interaction, real instant messaging with the context of a contract, and therefore executing the transaction was really powerful for them because it augments their capabilities of playing with more, and also playing with multiple, because it means for them, imagine that they have a solution developed by, I don't know, a software vendor X. They will be able to receive request to quote from broker A, B, C, D, E, F, exactly from the same. They are using a software that is provided to them by a third party, but they can respond through the same software to multiple parties. So this solves loads of challenges that they have. Instead of logging and logging off in multiple platforms, they can respond from the same. Again, look at the strategy of the email. In case you're receiving an email from a dot, I don't know, Aon or dot Willis or dot Tiger, you don't need to switch client. You are using your client. The client enables the communication. And that's exactly the strategy of what we're doing, and the simplicity that this brings.
If I can just add two things to Charlie Ryder's question. So and it covers a little bit of what Antonio said. From our parallel run of 1/1 renewals, one of the bits of feedback well, these are two bits of feedback that I received directly. The one was around process transparency, around the value that brought to people immediately. And the other one was the head of reinsurance from a large cedent that participated. And he said the moment he clicked the PDF button, and whilst he'd been walking through this negotiation process, and it generated a contract that looked exactly like something he's used to, with all the pros, the clauses that have been added via the application, as well as all of the deterministic parts that are parametric. It was sort of a light bulb moment for him that this could be a way to get to the same place in a very different means, and that was, he's certainly someone who hadn't been focused on the process, but then seeing that it achieved exactly the same things was something that he did. He commented to me on in person.
Great, guys. Well, thank you everybody for joining. All that leaves to say is, if you want to get in touch with us beyond this session, please send any emails to sales@b3i.tech or info@b3i.tech. We'll also be sending out all the slide decks and recordings. The same thing for the last few sessions, and tomorrow's sessions will all be on the website by the end of the week. So keep an eye out there. But thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thanks a lot, and have a good afternoon.